What's up, and welcome back to Nowstalgia Pod, your weekly look at what's going on in pop culture. My name is Pat Sheen. I am here with my co-host Dave Martinson. Dave, do you like ketchup on your burgers? Because we're playing a lot of it this week.
Hey, I like what you did there.
So obviously, Solo, Fahrenheit 451, and The Tale have all dropped. But guess what? We're not talking about that today because thank you, Movie Pass. We have been able to see a lot of movies, and shout out Amazon Prime for one of these. But we're going to be talking about some smaller movies that we haven't got a chance to talk about because culture has just been that rampant and abundance this year. We're going to start with your girl, Zoe Kravitz, who you said is having a bit of a moment here. So talk to me about her movie Gemini.
Yeah, dog. So hot. Watching this came out beforehand, but hot off Ray Shremmerd and Janelle Monáe, Zoe Kravitz back in our lives once again.
Mm-hmm.
But realistically, this was premiered at South by Southwest 2017. So people already know about this movie. But it's a movie we would like to, put shine on because this is a movie that was in release for, 3 weeks. It was not in a lot of theaters.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone saw Solo. Not a lot of people saw Gemini. So something that we didn't want to wait on. If we didn't talk about it now, probably we're going to get to it, everything else that's coming out.
Right.
But, so Gemini is this mystery thriller movie from director Aaron Kratz. He doesn't have much credits, not notable filmmakers, kind of new in the game. But yeah, it has Zoe Kravitz and Lola Kirke as the two leads, and Zoe Kravitz plays this famous actress in celebrity in Los Angeles, and Lola Kirke plays her assistant, and a mystery unfolds, and I think Lola Kirke's performance is really good, and I actually really have a lot of time for Zoe Kravitz acting. I mean, she didn't get a lot to do in Big Little Lies, but I think as a co-lead in this movie, she was quite strong. And then once the crime happens, John Cho is the detective. That's kind of the frame of the plot, but the stuff I really like about this movie and why I think it's worth a watch for everyone is that it's just we say beautifully shot a lot. It's kind of cliche for anyone who talks about movies,
Mm-hmm.
It's it's beautifully shot. It looks great. But in this one, the camera work, so I saw this movie. I was the only one in the theater. So I had my phone out. I was taking notes the whole time because I was so impressed. And the camera work is impressive as fuck. Sometimes there's a beautiful handheld camera and it'll pan side to side as characters are walking, like some Aaron Sorkin walk and talk shit. And then there was this amazing drone shot of Los Angeles. In general, the Los Angeles skylines are in a lot of awesome shots. Then there was this really cool point where the camera was fixed, and then it changes focus on a plant in the foreground at the end of the scene. There was also this really cool one, a stereotypical windy road in the LA hills. They're following a motorcycle, and the camera pans on a pivot, and there's a lot of cool stuff. There's some really cool tracking car stuff, as well as the sound design I thought was really good. There was this really strategic use of bass early in the movie in terms of music. So, and then the lighting also was really good as well. I thought it really kind of fit the mood as a mystery movie in Los Angeles.
Mm-hmm.
So the filmmaking is really impressive for this. And the story is a kind of a thrilling mystery. And the performances are strong. So I think Gemini is is well reviewed, 77 on Rotten Tomatoes, but that's still 43 reviews to 13 reviews. That's not the 180 positive reviews Avengers has. Not a lot of people are talking about Gemini. So I think it's a movie that's going to fly under the radar still, but it's definitely worth everyone's time. Lola Kirke in particular really stands out. I mean, she was in Gone Girl, but I think this is her first big lead, and she really she kind of reminded me a lot of Mackenzie Davis, actually, who we'll talk about later in the pod. But yeah, this is something I definitely recommend, and it's yet another good movie from Neon, which is that new distributor hot on the scene after I, Tonya and Ingrid Goes West. We talk about A24 and Blumhouse a lot, but I think Neon is another one that's even newer. They don't even have a Wikipedia page yet, but they're they're rising. And so Gemini, I highly recommend.
Yeah, every trailer I've seen for Gemini, basically, I get that noir feel. It's a lot of neon lights with some dark foreboding, lighting around the edges, and just a gritty feel to it. I definitely want to check it out when it comes to film or to on demand.
VOD.
something I've watched on demand, Borg versus McEnroe. So Janice Metz, this is really her first like breakout film, I guess, if you want to call it that. She did Armadillo a couple of years back, and she also directed a couple episodes of True Detective. But right now, this is sitting at a really astute 83% on Rotten Tomatoes. And I am very impressed with this movie, but mostly because Shia LaBeouf, I can't really think of a film where he's been this good. I mean, a great performance from him. It stars him, Sphere Gudnason, and Stellan Skarsgård. And it's basically an autobiographical or a biographical sports look at the Borg versus McEnroe tennis matchup from Wimbledon back in the 80s, and kind of at these two people who are so opposite. You know, if you know anything about Borg, he was a very like flat presentation, always within himself, always controlled, and McEnroe was just like a firecracker all the time, like screaming at refs, screaming at fans, huge outbursts on the court, but kind of looking at how their lives are actually kind of similar off the court in ways, like this drive to be great, and where that drive came from, and how it kind of led them to handle their emotions and their feelings in such different ways. You know, I think it's easy to focus on Shia, because McEnroe, I think, is the person that most Americans know and relate to. I mean, he still does tennis analysis today. But the Sphere in this is like unbelievable, because he has such a harder role, because he has to pretty much give off all this emotion and all this performance that has to be so calculated and controlled, and he really only has like moments as his character, the older Borg, to kind of show like the emotional side underneath it, whereas like a lot of his emotional side is shown from the child actor that plays him, Borg, as a child. So definitely very interesting. And also anything that makes tennis kind of like interesting and fun to watch, I also give shout out to, because I like tennis, but it's not necessarily the most interesting thing for a movie.
Yeah, I think like watching stuff about like Borg and McEnroe or Jimmy Connors or anything from that time, even I didn't see, but Battle of the Sexes about Billie Jean King with Emma Stone, like anything about tennis back then is just more interesting than tennis today.
I know.
You know what's interesting about Borg versus McEnroe? It was also distributed by Neon. But they did an interesting thing. They released it in a small amount of theaters, but it did same day VOD. That's how you got to see it on Amazon Prime, right? So I thought that was an interesting choice, because I mean, this, you know, they debuted this at a Toronto Film Festival last fall. So like, you know, it was doing a traditional rollout, but for whatever reason they decided to, you know, I guess not sink too much money into a release. But how does it function as a sports movie? Because it's about sports, but you know how like, you know, some sports movies are better than others. You have your Raging Bulls and your Creeds, which are more character films. And then you have stuff like, you know, like Hoosiers, which is still good, but definitely, you know, different, not as deep.
Yeah, you know, I think the only time it really relies on the sports element is the actual match between them in the finals at Wimbledon, which is actually really dramatically shot. And of course, they have this like playoff where they're trading points, and neither one can pull away for like I forgot how many, but it was like an absurd amount of points, and that really just like showed basically like was the climax of it, where they pulled together that these two people are so similar and on such an even playing field, and are come from such like different but also similar backgrounds. It was just really well done. And also, after seeing that Janice Metz had been a director for True Detective, it made a lot more sense, because the way things were shot, just kind of like the look of the whole thing, I did get True Detective type vibes a lot of the time. But it's also I don't think they use body doubles, because it's kind of hard to cover that up when you're showing them actually doing the strokes. Which in that sense, I give LaBeouf and Gudnason a ton of credit, because to do it and to like replicate the way that these two like very famous tennis players played and do it so closely is really impressive. So definitely something to check out, and it's easy. I mean, if you have Amazon Prime, just rent it. It'll probably be actually on Prime sooner rather than later.
Yeah, probably. So is this your favorite Shia role? I know Shia has kind of been in the news for some of the wrong reasons. Actually, probably his biggest blow up recently was kind of a good thing, where he was arguing with Richard Spencer. But he's had some tough times. But I actually like him as an actor. What did you think of him?
Yeah, no. I mean, Shia is very interesting, but I thought this role was pretty perfect for him because, I mean, I think the thing most people know him for is, or at least recently, is like when he was doing that, like watching the movie and just following his life as like art, like type thing where he was like streaming it live. And it kind of allows him to play both sides, where he can be his quirkiness or his outgoing self, and then also that, like, obviously he's a person who's very thoughtful and introspective in a lot of ways, or at least tries to be. I really love this role. I think my favorite Shia role is probably Holes, but that's also like very nostalgic for me. So, sure. But yeah, no, I mean, like I said, I can't remember a performance that Shia has done that's been better than this. So.
Yeah, I mean, I'm eager to see it just because I really love Shia in Fury, the World War II tank movie with Brad Pitt, Shia, Michael Pena, John Bernthal, Logan Lerman. I thought that movie is great and brutally underrated, and he really brings it because he can just go full method in a role like that. So I'd like to, I think I'm hoping he's getting back in the swing of things. He does have another movie in post-production right now, so we can hold that hope, because I do think he's a really talented guy. He just had a lot of personal issues.
Definitely. Why don't we move on to Chappaquiddick, a movie that I'm probably not as high as the Rotten Tomatoes is. John Curran directs this biopic or biography drama again about Ted Kennedy and the I don't know what to call it, the manslaughter charges that he avoided.
Yeah.
When he drove off a bridge on Chappaquiddick Island and killed Mary Jo
Kopechne.
I was going to say, thanks for saying that, because there's no way I was pronouncing that correctly. Jason Clarke stars as Ted Kennedy. Kate Mara is Mary Jo. Ed Helms is Joe Gargan. Jim Gaffigan's in this. Bruce Stern plays Joe Kennedy Sr. Did you like this movie? Was it a movie you left feeling like, yeah?
I did like this movie, but I do like history movies in general. But I like this because I thought this was a biopic of sorts, but it was more than just a dramatic retelling of events the way like Paterno on HBO was, which we reviewed recently. Check that out, SoundCloud.com/nostalgiapod. But yeah, I thought Chappaquiddick told his story in a thoughtful way. I think in the story, it's not spoilers, it's just history.
Right.
Ted Kennedy basically gets off, and despite the fact that he was a great servant of the Senate for 47 years, and one of the most prolific politicians we've ever had, he did get away with a major mistake, and it's kind of been brushed under the rug until recently. And I like the way they told it, and I also thought Jason Clarke's performance was really good. I'm a fan of Jason Clarke, and I've seen him in a lot of stuff, and he was fucking capital A acting in this.
Yeah, and I mean, it's a role it's tough because you're trying to portray a person from a very famous family, a very famous person at that. He did the accent at times, didn't do the accent at times, but he also kind of pulled off the look well, which at times I thought, like, damn, I can't believe they found someone that actually kind of looks like Ted Kennedy, because he's a very distinct looking
especially person. Someone famous that you already know about.
Exactly. I actually thought Ed Helms was the heart of this movie, as
definitely
Joe
the heart. Yeah.
Which I mean, it speaks to the fact that he was probably the one that embodied the audience's feelings for most of this, kind of like that just do the right thing type feeling. But it did look at kind of the two sides kind of pulling at Ted to handle it in different ways and for different reasons why.
Right. Yeah. Ed Helms, good for him. Another dramatic role. He's had only a few of those, but he's a talented guy, and he's he hasn't been acting in a whole lot recently. So, but yeah, he played Joe Gargan, and from what we know, that was a pretty accurate portrayal of how things went down. Joe Gargan became estranged from the Kennedy family after the incident, and I mean, to Jason Clarke looking like him, he actually had like blocks in his mouth. Makes so sense. That he would talk the way Kennedy talked, and he said actually, long days shooting, it would actually make his like gums bleed by the end of the day. So he was really going for it with this role, and I
committed.
You know, it's one of the best acting performances I've seen in the year so far. I was really impressed. And I actually thought Bruce Dern, you know, playing Joe Kennedy on Death's Door, but also really, and this is to the movie's credit, kind of showing the other side to Joe Kennedy, where even at that old age, the one word he can let out is alibi, you know?
Alibi.
And also, I really like Clancy Brown. He's obviously notorious for voice acting these days, but as Robert McNamara, someone who we just saw portrayed in The Post, and you know, seeing like he's a professional politician, one of the most, you know, prolific people we've had in our government. And I don't know. Like, I know some people like find movies like this really dry, which I get, but I was a big fan.
Yeah, no, it's definitely worth a watch. I think what I kind of left feeling is like sometimes I think the emotional stuff for Ted didn't totally hit, like when it was when he's talking to his dad, you know, Jason Clarke talking to Bruce Dern about like how, you know, Jack and Robert were great because they were great men, not because of him. Something about that didn't land for me. I'm not really sure what that was. I probably should give it another watch and see if it lands the second time.
Yeah. I think it's also kind of a tough task, like making a movie about this incident. There's just so much characterization you have to do with putting any Kennedy on screen, especially Ted Kennedy, once both of his brothers were already killed. You know, like there's a lot to pull off there. I mean, like you said, I feel like they definitely gave it their best shot with it. I think it looked like 1969 and they sounded like it. So, I mean, I think you're right. Like it's tough to convey the emotion that Ted Kennedy would have without another few hours of backstory. You know, you kind of have to like understand that going in as the audience.
Right. Well, and who doesn't know that story by now? But now jumping from one story about a car going into water to another story where a car goes into water.
Spoilers.
A bit of a spoiler. It's not huge to the actual story.
You don't know what that means anyway.
Tully, Jason Reitman, probably the most famous director we're talking about today. Directed Up in the Air, Juno, Thank You for Smoking. So Tully's sitting pretty at 87% Rotten Tomatoes, 75% on Metacritic. Got Charlize Theron, Mackenzie Davis, Ron Livingston, Mark Duplass. Quite the cast. In a very unexpected turn in this movie. You see the trailers and you kind of think this movie is about you know, motherhood, and in a sense it is, but it's really about Marlowe's understanding of herself and
for sure
her mental health. I mean, what stood out to you about this movie? What did you like?
Yeah, no, I think to that point, like you're like, oh, it's a movie about postpartum depression. You know, she's just had her third child and she's really struggling, you know, with motivation, energy, and parenting in general, right? Like, okay, Charlie's a great actor. I think I may see where this is going, but it probably will pay off. And what you don't expect is that as soon as Mackenzie Davis's character Tully comes in as the night, as like a night nanny, basically to help, and they start having like, you know, like slumber parties almost when they're just confiding in each other. And I mean, at one point they have that convo about taking boards out of the ship and then the cells regenerating. And are you still that person? And it really gets into like the human condition in a way you did not expect to get to.
Yeah.
But I really like this movie, and I think once you get into Act 3 and the movie really gets there going, because it takes a while for Tully to show up, but once it gets going, I think it really pays off. I know some people are think that it lands too softly at the end, but I really liked it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really want to get into spoilers because I don't think a lot of people have seen this, but I think if there's one like criticism of it, it's that like the consequences that the character faces that maybe they face, but they don't really make explicit, really aren't known based on what happens in the third act. But I do think the commentary it says about like what it means to be yourself at a certain time in your life, and then how things change based on your goals, based on the decisions you make, based on where you're at in your life. And especially something like parenthood is really, really telling. And it's also really moving to kind of, when the twist does happen, to kind of see how that changes what the story means just in general. It's a totally different movie once that twist comes about.
Sure. Did you see it coming?
Yeah,
I didn't see it
no.
coming.
I didn't.
Yeah.
I think when I started to was kind of in the third act when there were so many similarities and things. I was kind of like,
I feel like I think I maybe started thinking about like maybe a minute or two before it happened,
right,
but not till like right at the end.
Yeah. It's kind of hard to talk about without really going into that, but I thought Theron and Mackenzie Davis had great chemistry, and they were just like blew me away in this.
Yeah, and honestly, the movie needed them to have it because a lot of the movies, those two have a conversation in a room.
Yep.
It's this is Jason Reitman's fourth collab with Diablo Cody, who wrote. Obviously, she was nominated for Best Original Screenplay for Juno, and then also worked with him on Young Adult. And Reitman also got two best directors, between Juno and Up in the Air. So like this is like a really good creative team, and they needed to nail, I think, that chemistry, but also like the script, because it's a lot on the actors to really carry these scenes. And obviously they picked two really competent people. Charlize kind of goes without saying at this point, but she's really been on a hot streak lately, and also picking different roles. She's not like this. She's so hot right now. She could sell out a lot more. Like she did Fast 8, but to do this where she does not look very attractive in this movie, despite being a gorgeous woman. So I give her a lot of credit for continuing to pick different kinds of roles.
I know. Well, it was funny because when I walked in the movie theater I went to, they had like T-shirts for different movies that have come out, and one of the people selling the tickets was wearing an Atomic Blonde shirt, and I was like, damn! I saw Charlize Theron as Atomic Blonde, and I saw her as this like middle-aged mom, or not middle-aged, but like early 30s mom who's like struggling with her life, and just like that range that she's showing, and really kind of continuing to establish herself as one of the top in the game is awesome. And Mackenzie Davis taking that next step. She was obviously in The Martian, San Junipero, things like that, but this is, I think, her real first step towards like superstardom.
Yeah, she gets great remarks in *Halt and Catch Fire*, but that was a show that was not well watched.
No one watched
us included. I would like to watch it still, but I have to make time. And she was recently cast in the 6th Terminator movie, and apparently she's not playing Sarah Connor; she's playing somebody else. So and she was in Blade Runner 2049, of course. In that smaller role, but more Mackenzie Davis, put her in more stuff. She is electric.
Please. Definitely.
And as soon as she shows up in this movie, when she first comes to the house at night, and I was like, wow, like she's bringing it. She's not. It wasn't phoned in, and but that also speaks to the script. Like her character, I thought was very well written.
Definitely, and just magnetic. Totally magnetic. We do need to wrap up there. What do we got next week, Dave?
So next week, we will probably come at you with multiple pods, because this Friday, Kanye West, as far as we know, is still going to be dropping a new album. We'll have to catch up on Pusha T's King Push, and Solo, of course, and Fahrenheit 451, really hyped out from HBO. The reviews are great, and the same for reviews for The Tale, Laura Dern's HBO movie. So a lot to get with. Arrested Developments, we'll probably get that a little later, but a lot coming out / already came out, so we will be catching up. But we didn't want to let these 4 lesser known, lesser seen movies go under the radar, because I think that's kind of the when you have a platform, and not that we have like a massive platform, but it's smart to put shine on stuff. It's kind of like last week XXL Freshman, like
absolutely
you don't only put Little Pumps on the cover, put the less famous rappers on that. In this case, put your Geminis on the cover. So that's why we're doing it.
Definitely. And if you want us to be covering anything that we're not, hit us up at Nowstalgia Pod on Twitter, subscribe to the YouTube channel, interact with us here, soundcloud.com/Nowstalgia Pod, give us a rating and review on iTunes, everywhere that you can get in contact with us. Please interact with us. We need your feedback to keep growing, and we want to be bringing you what you want to hear. So until we're talking about Kanye West next week, because we don't talk about that enough on this channel, peace out.